Well, good morning. I feel like I just saw everybody. This is Megan Stowe. She's our new district superintendent for the new district we talk about, the Commonwealth West. I'm glad that Megan was able to make it. I do know that Megan has roughly, 90 churches under covering?
80, yeah.
80, yeah. So it's nice that she was able to see us today and she was able to be here. I feel very honored by you coming. And I'll let you start.
Okay. Well, I originally had planned on attending worship with you all, and then the bishop reminded us that district superintendents aren't supposed to go to in-person worship because we go to so many different churches. So, thank you for being hospitable. I wasn't trying to avoid worshiping with you all today, but I am grateful to be here with you. And I was a little worried because originally it sounded like it was going to be very cold today. This was pretty nice. So thank you for being willing to meet outside so that we all stay safe. And since we all just had worship, we don't need to do all that liturgy part that would normally take place with church conference. So we might actually be out in time for lunch. So God is good.
All the time. All the time. All the time.
So I'm going to start just with a centering scripture to kind of get us in the attitude of this conference. So in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, he says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" We know that God is indeed doing a new thing because everything is different today than it was in March. And some of that has been very tough, and some of that has been an opportunity for growth. And so I am thankful to be able to be present with you all. I have to admit that I was very excited when the bishop said that I would get Western Mass. I started my ministry in the Troy Conference, so Vermont, and a Vermont-sized portion of upstate New York, and I spent 8 years in the capital region, but I grew up in a really rural area, and so most of Western Mass feels a lot more like home than Worcester does. So thank you. I am so excited to be present with you, and I was able to wander around your church a little bit. So it's a really beautiful facility. So the first piece of business for a church conference always is the election of a secretary to take minutes. And do we have anyone who's willing to do so today?
Do not look at me. I don't really want to do it again.
Can we go for film at this moment and then have Cheryl, our admin assistant, view it, because this will go on our website and she can download what she needs to.
As long as we get minutes for the conference office, absolutely. Yeah.
So we can make sure that happens.
So all those in favor of recording this for the time being and typing up minutes afterwards, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
This will be online later today, so.
perfect. Okay, do we have a sheet of paper going around with everybody's name, or somebody who's willing to write attendance?
I'm writing it.
Okay, got it.
What was that?
Okay. All right, and so in your blue packet, we have the minutes from last year's church conference. I would invite you to take a few minutes to reread to see if there are spelling errors in your name or things that aren't quite right, and then we'll vote on the minutes. all had a chance to read through the minutes? Do we have any additions or corrections that we need made? So hearing no need for additions or corrections, I would invite us to vote to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the audit from last year, I believe, was delayed due to COVID, is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And last year, when I was reading your minutes, last year you guys had not had your audit completed. Did the audit for 2018 get done?
2018 is completed and paperwork was submitted to the conference.
Perfect.
2019 has not happened because we couldn't get together with Katrina.
So as soon as that is completed, please send a copy to the district office, and I'd greatly appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have somebody here from the trustees? So I have 3 questions for you, and then I'd invite you to share what things you all have been up to this past year. So has the congregation received any bequests from a will in the last year? No.
No.
Okay. Do you know why we have to ask this question every year?
No.
So in my first church, it was a 3-point charge, and there used to be a church building in all 3 towns, and they were supposed to sell their building, and we were going to all come together in this new building. Well, 2 of the 3 churches sold their building, the 3rd one refused to, but they all built together, or they all paid to build a church together. And somebody died who had $250,000 left to the church, and it sounded really exciting. You know, this was a small farming community. We had 24 on Easter Sunday, you know, so it was tiny. And we accepted the $250,000, but there were strings attached to that money, that the money could only be used to build a new church building in the depot. Well, they had sold that church in the depot, right? So that we could come together in the center. And so we never could use that money. All we could use was the interest from that $250,000. So when we come and have a bequest given to the church, we need to come together as a community of faith to vote on it, to accept the terms of it, and so that we all know, oh, that money can only be used for the bell tower, or that money can only be used for organ repair. And if we no longer have anyone who can play the organ, maybe that's not the best use of money. So, okay, thank you. Have you all used any capital or any principal from investments or endowments for operating expenses this year?
Not for operating expenses.
Good. And have you spent any funds realized from the sale of a parsonage in this past year? And if so, what was it spent on and how much?
We used funds from the sale of a parsonage to put in our new bathrooms. Wait a minute, were those done this year or the
That was
prior
last
year?
That was in the minutes from last year, so I
Then
think
this
that's
year,
good.
no, we haven't. We haven't.
Okay. Well, you know that if you want to use some money from that we need to be in communication together. There needs to be a plan shared with the district superintendent, and it also goes to a district-wide committee called Church Building and Locations. So, otherwise, the expenses from a parsonage sale need to go and be put into escrow, and that can be used for buying a new parsonage or paying for a pastor's housing allowance. So,
On that note, I will say that one of the things we're experiencing this year, and I'll let Sam speak to it from trustees and co-chair, is that this roof is shot. Unfortunately, we had bids taken a while ago, and I'll let Sam speak to that, and they had to go up. We're looking to use the parsonage fund very quickly because the
Yeah,
roof
it's
is
about,
like a
the
sieve.
roof is about 50 years old.
yep, it's about time.
About 50. It's surprising it lasted as long as it did, because I think they used 30-year shingles on it. So it's so anyways, we got bids, but the problem, the bid so far, I mean, we're going to have to use, because it's the only one that was updated, because the bid is $83,551. And what we have to do is we have to plywood the whole roof before we put the shingles down, because the building was built in the mid-1800s, and there's too many spaces between each board. So we have to plywood the roof, then shingle the roof. The only thing that happened is the plywood, when we wanted to do it last November, the plywood was $16 a sheet, and right now it's $32 a sheet.
Oh, wow.
And it's all across the board. All the people building houses, they all went up sometimes 30% to build a new house. So we've got to get going on it, and it was $83,551. We did have other bids, but they're higher.
And how long do you think it would take to get it done once they started?
Well, I hope a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I hope, because it's getting close. It's
Well, I was gonna
September, you
say-
know, you don't want to get into November or anything like that. But they got quite a crew, so. And we've used them before. They've done repairs on the roof before. And they also did, we had a fire here in the front part of the church. They did that. They repaired it very reasonable, so.
They did our new bathrooms last year.
And they did all the bathrooms. We spent $42,000 on the bathrooms. And they brand new in the second floor. So the company is R.G. Penfield and Sons Incorporated.
So are there other trustees' items that you would like to update the entire church on? Things that you all did this past year, things that are in process for next year?
Actually, is the memorial fund considered part of that?
It can be, yeah.
We are spending memorial money. We've already spent $2,500 on a down payment to have the audio system in the church updated. And the actual work will begin tomorrow.
And the balance is what, $2,500?
The balance due will be about another $2,500, give or take.
Oh, and I just real quick, I met with someone from Eversource. We did a complete walkthrough of the church for an energy audit, and they are drawing up a plan to replace all our light bulbs or light fixtures to LED that have not already been done so.
Great. Do you have a sense of how much that's going to cost to upgrade all the lights? Or
Oh, that's free.
it's free? Okay.
I've been video recording a lot of the services also, like what I'm doing now, to help make it more accessible for church. People who aren't comfortable coming out. I'm not charging us anything. It's more of a volunteer help. my kindness, my heart type deal, and I get the services online. They're usually up by 5:30 p.m., so I'm hoping that will help bring more awareness of us.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, John came forward at Easter time and emailed me and said, Pastor, would you like to do videos starting in Easter and put them on YouTube? And we did that for weeks. I know that Kat was not there. She was there earlier. Our music director do music at the end. And a lot of us were able to share that link with folks on Facebook that we know. So we did see some outreach there. And John, the endless hours he's done is just amazing. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we should give him a round of applause.
Yep. Good job, John. And I do want to thank the trustees for everything they're doing also.
Absolutely.
I've been here 2.5 years, roughly, and we've gone through boilers blowing up, to water coming through the bell tower roof, to the chandelier like a river, to having to replace the floor in the fellowship hall, to all kinds of pipes freezing because the furnace didn't work, delaying church for 2 hours, everybody cuddling into the library for a couple weeks in the summer without heat, and the trustees, all the trustees stepped forward for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know. I don't like it.
Any other things that the trustees want to share? Well, then let's give the trustees one more round of applause. So now we get to the staff parish relations.
Susan filled out the form, right?
Right.
Yep.
So there's a few pieces of compensation that we have to vote on. And the first one is the total cash salary. And would you like to share about
Yeah,
that?
the SBRC is recommending a 2% increase. The current salary is $13,484 with an increase of $270. So the final cash salary would be $13,754.
Do we have any questions on this?
Given the COVID virus, I would expect the line of increase this year.
Is your previous salary up to minimum though?
I think so, yeah.
I just have to double check that. So the corrected amount will be what? If he declines his increase this year?
I'm sorry, I missed that. He's declining what?
He's declining his increase.
The number before the 2%.
So you don't want the 2% increase?
No,
So
not
the
this year.
salary is $13,484.
Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, are we ready to vote on this total tax? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
The next piece is the housing allowance.
We submitted old paperwork, I understand, Cass, I'm looking to put $2,000 under housing allowance.
So one of the benefits, one of the few benefits tax-wise for clergy is that we can receive a housing allowance, which is cash given pre-tax to go for any sort of furnishing of one's house or to pay for a mortgage or rent.
Typically what we've done historically is it's not a cash allowance. I use it for just for numbers of tax.
So, do we have any questions regarding this housing allowance? Hearing none, it sounds like we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the $2,000 housing allowance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And then the last number that we need to vote on is the reimbursable expenses. And from the paperwork you sent me, the reimbursable was not up to minimum. So the minimum for a full-time pastor is $3,200. So a quarter-time pastor should be $800 for reimbursables. Does that sound reasonable for everybody?
Yeah.
If that's the minimum, then
Yeah, that's
we
the
have
minimum.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a choice. I don't want to seem like I'm forcing something on you.
That's
Typically I haven't used it.
yeah.
So that reimbursable would be for gas mileage, that would be for, and of course gas
Gas?
mileage would be from here, not from his home.
Right.
But to visit somebody in the hospital, to go to district meetings, a lot of those things right now are not happening, but it could happen. It'd be for if he needed to purchase a book for something that's going on in the district, it could help with his course of study, things like that. So, all those in favor of approving the $800 minimum total reimbursable, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Steph Hirsch, do you have anything that you'd like to share about ministry this year and your work?
It's just because of the pandemic, it's been crazy, and we really haven't met that often because of it, and some other kinds of things that have happened this past summer. So I'm sorry, we don't have much to right now.
Prior to the virus, we worked very hard on creating that restriction myself.
Right.
So it sounds like you were busy, and I know that once COVID hit, everybody had to pivot.
Right.
And your pastors and your shared ministry team had to pivot as well. And I know that for congregations, we had to get used to worship online and then worship in person, but our favorite pew is taped off. And yeah, I know that that's been really hard, and I appreciate your flexibility in this time. So I think we should give our staff parish a round of applause. Okay, the next piece is the finance report. So is there somebody here from finance that can speak to how we're doing year to date?
We're doing fine.
Still have $1 in there?
Tell me more.
Well, we have paid, there were actually, I was very nervous when the church closed because I wasn't sure how we were going to pay our bills. But we have done a few cost-saving measures this year already. Like we now have a great group of people that clean this church. So we save money on cleaning services. We've also saved money on phone and internet because we switched to a different provider. And then there has been a few Sundays where the collections were quite good. So, so we've been able to maintain. Come winter though, when we have heat and snow removal and all that, I'm not sure, what it's gonna look like. We have paid, I think, $4,000 so far for mission shares, with the goal of paying at least another $1,000 by the end of the year. And the only other, I do have a large building insurance premium to pay, that I have to, kind of plan for that, but right now we're doing pretty good.
I seem to remember that you guys were pretty much right on target for mission shares. I think it was 67% paid or something like that, and at this time of year it should be right about 75. So I'm really happy, and I know that it's been an incredibly difficult year, and I was wondering, do you have any sort of way of doing online giving, or is it just mailing in checks and
It's mailing in checks. Chris looked into online giving, but there's actually quite a large fee for using that service. So I'm not sure that would work for us.
In my last congregation, what we ended up doing was we would tell people, you pay your electric bill online, you have your bank send out a check. And so what we did was we had our individuals who felt comfortable doing so would have their bank send out a monthly check.
There are
We
some.
do have those.
Yeah,
There's
we do
several
have
of
those.
Two.
Two.
Two or three.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we also, we've been, even when we were closed down, people were still either sending in or dropping off their
Uh-huh.
pledge, some money. It
good.
wasn't always necessarily their pledge, but they dropped off something. So we were making even a deposit pretty much once a week.
Once a week, yeah.
It continued.
Yeah, we came in once a week, usually on a Wednesday, took all the mail in, sorted, anything that Cheryl left, we took in and processed a
decent deposit.
deposit every week. So,
Yeah.
So we've done okay.
Yeah, I mean, we usually we do a couple fundraisers a year, and we usually rely on those, and we haven't had those.
So what
this
kind
year.
of fundraisers do you typically have?
Well, we do a dinner and a tag sale.
We had a
sometimes.
dinner planned.
We had a dinner planned, and I've got stuff for a tag sale.
we had a big music program planned that we had to
Yeah.
cancel.
Yeah.
We're also looking at doing some film showings. I was gonna put together public domain stuff as well.
Before the virus hit, there was talk of a capital fundraiser. We would use the district for that, of course. But there's certainly a need here, and I think there's interest.
That is definitely, I would encourage you to reach out to David Abbott from the Methodist Foundation of New England. He is a member of our annual conference. He used to be the district superintendent in New Hampshire. And he is really willing to help people work through what that might look like. And the best part is our mission shares pay for him, so he's free to have conversations with us. So he's really an invaluable resource that I'd encourage you all to check out.
I'll see if I can get that information. I have it on my Facebook. Great guy.
So I wonder about the dinners that you had. I know some congregations are doing takeout suppers rather than sit-in suppers. Is that something that could be a possibility? I know that makes us have to change and have takeout containers and things, but
Yeah. We probably still have a bunch.
I think
Because when we did dinners, we did offer takeout as well as eat in. So we've probably still got 600 takeout containers. We bought them in bulk.
Oh,
I thought we were at the end of them.
Oh, were we?
Yeah.
But,
if we
I mean,
already
we
have the
could,
containers, that may be a possibility because no
Yeah,
other
we can ask
churches that I know of are doing that.
I think
Berniston.
Berniston is.
Burnett, are they doing it every month?
no,
No.
they've only done a couple,
Yeah. So
so. it
people
would
might
be a-
enjoy that.
I know
We
that
could talk about it.
those meals, you know, yeah, they're fundraisers for the church, but it's really more about the camaraderie in those who are working it and serving. And I know that takeout's not quite as much camaraderie, but it's something, especially if we depend heavily on it funding a particular ministry or the budget. So, just something to think about. Let me take a peek. Did we have a budget for us?
We do not have a budget for 2020.
I would have been very surprised if you had.
No, we haven't worked on that. I know finance needs to meet, so we should probably schedule something for sometime in October.
Yeah, I will say we were very excited. After Charge Conference last year, we opened it up to the church to have finance committee and look at our budget for this current year. Prior to COVID, things were working out quite well. But we were, I quote Charlene, we were for the first time within $5,000. A lot of creative ideas came from that. So I think we've worked very hard as a church to make sure that things were happening. We looked at mission shares, and at that time we were thinking of taking 10% of everything we took in and putting it towards mission shares, but I don't know that that's a possibility for the remainder of the year. Because we really feel strongly that mission shares are an important part of who we are as Methodists.
But if I can answer to that,
Yeah.
I think it's very important for us to give 10%. Because in order to get back and it's much better to give than it is to receive. And 10% is not a big amount. And I will sit here and volunteer that if we can't make the 10%, I will make up the difference.
That's awesome.
I think we should give her a round of applause.
Absolutely.
Yep, I think we need to work hard so that she doesn't have to, but we're all encouraged to be generous and cheerful givers. So, in our packet is there a nominations report?
No, there isn't. And the reason there isn't is we just started meeting again about a month prior, 6 weeks prior to our opening on January 12th. We had no meetings. We just had our first trustee meeting a few weeks ago. And it was felt that we do not have a nominations report this year. When I met with future ministry team and some leaders we added to leadership who were volunteering, we decided that we really didn't have any new bodies to put in places where people are already existing in what they did. In a perfect world, we would have had a nominating committee, but people are just stepping up to the plate. Susan is back, stepping into SBRC. Some people have had to step down. Kurt has offered also to be in SBRC this year, and so he's chaired before in the past. So we're running with what we had before for this year, and we felt that that was okay, knowing that next year we definitely need to have a nominating committee.
Okay. So, in Massachusetts, we have to vote on the trustees separately. So could you share the names of the trustees so that we can have that official vote?
Yep. Sam Keppel. Jim Hume. Ron won't bring that up, so I apologize. Ron Weaver. Chris Shutta. who's the treasurer, trustees. Barbara Woodcock, who's not here today. And am I missing anybody?
Sadly, no.
So any of those names a surprise to those individuals to be on trustees? Sometimes I go to church conference and people are like, I'm on what committee?
These people have served for a while.
Okay, great. So all those in favor of those individuals continuing on trustees, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say I'll do it.
I like that.
Any abstentions? Okay, it sounds like our trustees are duly elected, and do we accept the rest of our leadership as has been in the past? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So, the next is the approval of our lay servants and our lay speakers and certified lay ministers. And I want to say you guys win the prize so far with the number of lay servants, lay speakers, and certified lay ministers. And I am impressed, and I want to hear the story about how this came to be so that we can duplicate this throughout the district, because I truly feel that this is one of the most valuable ministries that our conference can offer with lay folks. When I started ministry, we only had lay speakers, and it was basically if a pastor wanted to go on vacation, you took a lay speaking course so that your pastor could take a vacation. And I don't know about you, but I was never one for public speaking, so I never chose to take that class, but I was a very active layperson, and I think that if they had offered some different courses at that point in time, I might have been able to build up my leadership capacity and giftedness earlier. So I am excited to hear about our lay speakers and lay servants from this congregation and about how that came to be.
You want me to talk?
I'll
I'll talk, I don't care.
Either or.
Many years ago, we couldn't afford a pastor.
Well, she left.
She left in the middle of,
She left us in February.
right, she gave us
Oh,
a
gosh.
2-week notice and left.
Literally gone, like just not like stop going, just was gone.
Right. And so Heidi Chamberlain, God bless her little heart, Nana, had the confidence in the lay speakers at the time, and we rotated through Sundays, and we preached
For 3 years.
3 years,
And we did all the other stuff.
and we did all the other stuff.
There was a lot of other stuff.
Right, right.
There is, yeah.
And we've become a very close-knit group of individuals. We have served as pulpit supply for surrounding area churches. We still supply here with Joe.
Yep.
And it truly is a team. There's no I in team, and it works.
Yeah, we still have a rotation. There's still one Sunday a month where there's a lay person in the pulpit.
That's great.
So, and we've been called through past our own district into Brattleboro on a fairly regular basis.
Wonderful.
And when we've been able to, we've had retreats and different, we could use more support, but that's given us energies to go on.
All right.
And I think one of the things that I know you're working on was developing a prayer ministry, had to go by the wayside for now. But will you speak to that, Jeanette?
yeah, that needs to get going. God's been putting that back on my heart. How can we?
Yeah.
Of course, would bring that up. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. I like putting people, it's a positive thing. It's a positive. It was going really well in this way.
With Pastor Joe's wife Sharon and I, along with we've already had other prayer ministry things in place with the prayer shawl ministry and with our online email prayer ministry, but it's grown to more than just an email prayer ministry chain. And we really started getting the ball rolling with what a live prayer ministry would look like, including praying for the worship leaders and the Sunday school during worship. We started redoing the teddy bear ministry, which we had done before. Is there another? Am I missing another? No. And I had done a workshop last year on a kind of a prayer binder, and there was a lot of, it had been promoted in advance. There were people from other churches who had accepted, and then a big deal charge conference thing came out. So members of the church weren't really able to participate as much, but had a small group of people from 3 different churches in the community that came, and I led a kind of on how to build a faith journaling binder, prayer binder, kind of based on the War Room and the hour that changed the world. And I had plans to incorporate that as well. And of course, the pandemic happened. So how that can look and how that can happen in the times that we're living in needs to be addressed. So I thank you for bringing that up. And it has been heavy on my heart. Going through a lot of changes where I work, which is actually going to be closing in a couple months. So I haven't been able to give it my full focus, but I will. And anybody who's interested in working with me with that, let me know, because it needs.
So we have to vote on each lay servant individually. Sharon's not here, is that correct? Do we approve Sharon to continue as a certified lay servant?
Yes.
Yes.
And Charlene?
Yes.
Does Charlene want to say anything?
No.
What?
Said
The next one is for James.
Yeah.
Does James want to say anything? Your report speaks for itself, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. How about Chris?
Yes.
And what about Kirk?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about this? Or
I'll say something. I'm Chris. I'd just like to say that being part of the mutual ministry team has really made me grow as a person. So I just thank them all.
I'd also like to say that the mutual ministry team, why I'm interested by doing this, we taught me a long time ago from the Lions team. But I think, not joking aside, there were a lot of things that we had in place that we had planned with the church as a whole. Ron Weaver had a family band, we had our praise band, music person, Catherine, she has a band, and we're going to have 4 bands here in May. We're open to be open to the community. We're going to, what I'm saying is the mutual ministry team and the leadership of this church have been very supportive in me and my role as pastor. That was evidenced last summer, the summer before last, when I had to take 12 weeks off. I had my knees replaced. One of the things I asked them to do was to call me weekly, and they did, reluctantly sometimes, but they still did it, to let me know what's going on. But seriously, we as a church all together, we have pulled together to try and grow this church. We had the May sprinkling planned, with face painting planned, with we were going to look at Wayne doing a historical booth and just talking about the church, hot dogs, hamburgers, and opening it up to the community, and that wasn't able to happen, which was very exciting after last charge conference, because this all spawned along with the budget stuff off of last year's charge conference. And I think everybody just kind of banded together and got it going. But the ministry team and the lay servants, and I always mix them up with lay speakers. As a lay speaker years ago, and they were too. Have been very supportive of this church, their efforts. I want to thank them for their efforts, and I look forward to working with them in the future.
I think we should give them a round of applause. All right. Do we have any candidates for ministry? Okay. Do we remember the last time somebody went into the ministry from this congregation?
No, there was somebody after me. Jackson was his last name.
Oh, Bob Jackson.
Bob Jackson.
Bob
Yeah.
Jackson.
So we know that the Holy Spirit has been working in this place, and I feel like this church, more so than many churches, hearing about your mutual ministry team, it may not be in a official clergy capacity, but there are many different ways of being in ministry, and I don't want you all to think that Pastor Joe and I are the only kind of clergy that there are, that you all are called to a certain kind of ministry, and I'm thankful for those who have responded to that calling. So the next thing we have is, do we have any retired ministers in this congregation?
No. We have a former LLP.
Right.
Can't hear.
We have a former licensed local pastor, Jeanette, who's working on the prayer ministry.
Great. And do we have any extension ministers who affiliate with this church conference?
There was talk prior to the conference of having Sharon do it, but I don't know where we're going to be with that
Okay.
at this point. And I know for years and years and years Charlene did it. I don't know if the problem with the technology is an issue right this year. And that's why we're doing this in person. It's difficult for people to do Zoom and to those kinds of things.
Okay. And so, pastor's report. What things would you like to highlight from this past year?
Well, the things I'd like to highlight, as I was saying earlier, when we came out of church conference last year, I was very excited that we had a budget meeting that developed into a missions plan. It developed into all kinds of stuff. We looked at the May spring fling. We looked at having members of the church who are musicians involved in that. Just about everybody had a role in what was happening. People milling around and greeting people. All of that was planned, and it was very exciting. And it was looking to reach out to the community around the church and to have things happen. Like we talked about during the sermon today, we're starting to look at different ways in which, with missions, that we're going to be relational. And Charlene's been working on that last year, and I won't take away from your thunder when we get to missions, but we did a lot of missions that were very touching last year. And Charlene will cover those during her mission report. But I think those all spawned from deciding, and I will take this and say that we decided that we needed to have a local monthly mission in the community. And that's what came out of those meetings. And those meetings were not just the ministry team, they were open to the entire church. And anybody who wanted to attend could attend and participate. And as I brought up Jeanette, I did not mean to put her on the spot, but we were developing a much larger and active prayer ministry in the church. This past year we had a different type of Advent. It was a train theme where we pulled into the station with hope, love, joy, and peace. For Christmas Eve we had a cantata, which was awesome. And so the train theme, Advent, just about everybody in the church was involved in some form or fashion. We had Wayne that station. You know, Sharon's not here today. She developed that, and so, and with including everybody. So I think that was different than traditional. I'm a traditionalist, but I did serve as liturgist for that part of it. She would run things by me and get my thoughts prior to doing it. And then shortly thereafter, the COVID virus hit, and we kind of took a hit in terms, but we're back. We're one of, to my understanding, 3 or 4 churches now that are open. We follow state guidelines. We have everything on file. We're doing the things we need to do to make that happen. And we've had people, extended people, thinking of one person that comes to church on a regular basis who girlfriend was in a nursing home, developed COVID, went to Franklin, and through, I believe through our prayers, was able not to have to be put on a ventilator. It was very close. She's now healed from the COVID virus. So we've personally been touched in some way by COVID in the church. And, you know, at this point, I would love to see this place grow again. We're starting to see new people, a couple new people come. We have one person coming from a local congregational church that is now not having services and place their building up for sale. And I think as we move forward, we will continue to see those things happen.
I think we should give our pastor a round of applause.
Not me, it's you.
Put it through your leadership.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we come to the time in our church conference where we look at the membership report.
Unfortunately, Barb is unable to be here. She had an illness that precludes her from being here.
So when we look at the report, it looks like we had 1 death in the past year.
There were 2.
There were 2?
Actually, 3.
3?
No, I take that back. It was her daughter.
I have 2.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, you know,
Yeah.
Georgia Bell.
Georgia Bell's
yeah,
daughter.
her daughter, she was a member.
Okay, so I only have 1 on my list. So what
I
are you
have,
coming?
I have Marilyn Burgess
Mm-hmm.
and Shirley Hunting. She just passed away a week ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Do you know her date of death?
September 7th.
Okay. All right.
It's written down. I'm not that good.
I thought you were.
So are there things we'd like to share or to highlight about Marilyn and Shirley's life and their ministries and the congregation?
I can speak of Marilyn's because I visited her on a regular basis while she was homebound, and I also did her funeral. So Marilyn was a very, very long time member of this congregation. Her husband was a peer here. His leadership was extremely important during his time here. And Marilyn continued to remain in contact with us, even through the time when she was in the nursing home and she was in very poor health. Our visits were short because she would just oftentimes just go to sleep. But she worked very hard during her time here and remained her contact here up until her death.
I am going to talk about Shirley. Shirley Hunting was a very special person to me. She and her mother and father lived downstairs from my mother and father on King Street in Orange. And Shirley was sitting on the front steps the day my mother brought me home from the hospital.
Mm.
And back, I think it's probably been 30 years now, because it's been a few years I haven't gone. Shirley and Charlie came out back home from doing a mission in South Carolina. And Shirley looked at me, she said, "You need to do this." She said, "This stuff is for you." And I thought, I don't know. So the next year, I got myself into a group of 28 people I didn't know, going to nowhere I didn't know, worried that they were going to leave me at a rest stop because nobody knew who I was. And I went to South Carolina for 27 years. And I do believe the strength in mission that I have is through Shirley.
So I think from hearing about these two individuals, I'm inspired, and I want to say, well done, good and faithful servants. So let's spend a moment in prayer. Gracious God, we are so grateful for the witness of these two women, for Marilyn and for Shirley, for the ways that they have responded to your calling in their lives, for the ways that they have touched the lives of us, and may their memory be a blessing to us. We thank you for the gift that you have given us in their life and in their love. We pray these things in your Son Jesus' name. Amen. So, for the remainder of the membership report, it looks like there weren't any new baptisms or new members or members who transferred out. Okay. Sounds good. So I know that those are all my required, I have to by discipline ask you questions, but I know that that does not even begin to scratch the surface of the ministry that you all are doing. So I'd like to hear a little bit about those missions that you guys have been talking about and other things that your congregation has been up to this past year so that I can get to know you better.
Currently, we are working with the community on a food, getting food in for our food banks and for our community meal places and for the Salvation Army. We started collecting last week. It goes from today through Saturday, and people have been bringing in quite a bit. One of the other things that we did last year and we're going to repeat this year is a scarf mission. And people brought in scarves. We put them in plastic bags so they wouldn't get wet or, damaged by the elements. We put a note inside saying who they were from. If they're cold, please take it. And we took out, I can't remember how many scarves we took. I think we took almost 30 scarves out. And we placed them on the steps at the library. We placed them on the steps in the Veterans Memorial Park. We put them out on Main Street. Tied them to lampposts and trees. And that was on a Sunday afternoon after church. And Monday when I went through, they were all gone. So I'm hoping we can double the amount of scarves we have this year. And, pardon me, just keep on working, Chris. And do that again come the first part of November. Also last year we did a sock ministry, and we took 150 pairs of socks to the Salvation Army. We are in the process of doing that again this year. So missions are alive and well.
Even under these bad conditions, we sent a large amount of baby clothes to the economic ministry in Maine.
Mm-hmm. So it used to be that district superintendents were supposed to be the pastor to the pastors, but a couple of years ago they changed our official job title in the discipline so that my job description is Chief Missional Strategist. And so you all make my job easy. Thank you. Thank you. That's exciting.
I'd still be going to South Carolina if I could sleep on the floor, but I can't. my gray hair gives me permission to stay home.
I think it was that last trip that did us
It
in.
did me in. It did me in.
Yeah.
But we stayed at an Episcopal church. We were the only Methodists that were allowed to stay there. And you know, we've gained a huge friendship with that church.
Right.
And Father Craig is leaving, by the way.
Oh, is he?
December 31st, he's done. But that's the end of the hill.
So are there other things that you want to highlight?
Yes. The music ministry that we have, because of the conditions that we are in, doesn't get highlighted. We have some great musicians. Ron is an excellent musician, as well as is Charlene. And our choir director has done an amazing job. She worked her full term of pregnancy. She was a trooper there. And we have a bell choir. And a bell choir that has two very non-musicians in it.
Was that intentionally looking at somebody?
Yeah.
Those two.
Okay.
It's us.
It's us, the two illiterates that were brought along through a bell choir. And I have to say, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
The bell choir is. I'm impressed with how. I can't hear us when we play, but I watch them online, the stuff that's recorded. I'm like, hey, we did pretty good. So the music part is what you're not able to see.
Right.
And having served other churches in the area that have basically zero music ministry,
Right.
ours is excellent. And I would say, other than maybe Hope United in Belchertown, has a bigger program than we do, or a more effective one. But given our per capita, our music program is pretty amazing.
And I know that it's really hard right now to worship in person and not be able to sing. I know that's painful. And so I'm excited to hear about the bell choir, because that's really kind of been suggested as a possible alternate. I know, so you have to be careful about how close you are to somebody else and how many bells you can really handle.
And it affects the way the music sounds, because I think it does anyway.
Yeah.
When you spread everybody out,
Right.
it encapsulates the notes in those little compartments, and I don't think it sounds as good. But yeah, we did play.
We
Yeah,
did.
we did.
We did play post-pandemic.
And
So
was it last week?
Yeah.
Char did a solo.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
What, 36,000?
That would
No,
include
16.
Ron and, Kat and her husband, Chris, every week coming in and practicing. And this week you weren't able to do it, but he brings a guitar in. His Joanne, who's not here today, played last week, was playing the keys, you were playing guitar. So, and then we had the bell stuff happening. So we had a lot happening in church with no wind instruments. And so it's been, it's hard not to be able to sing, especially when we did a lot of Faith We Sing stuff that Terry put together for us this week. They were pre-recorded. And all those songs are wonderful songs, and you just want to belt them out, but you can't. And lucky for you, I can't belt them out, so that's a good thing.
All right. Any other ministries that you want to highlight? Well, I have a question for you. And then we will conclude this meeting, and then I will stay with members of Staff Parish as well. So what new thing is God doing in your congregation in the midst of this pandemic? What new things have you learned? Where do you imagine that God is calling you to be and to do as a new church in this new world?
I think choosing to open when a lot of places weren't. We did whatever we had to. We followed the rules. Joe compiled all the state regs. We had meetings over it, and we did whatever it took to reopen. And a lot of folks didn't.
And I think being able to continue with our ministry, you know, collecting the scarves and the socks and the food and being out in the community, reaching back out to the community because realizing that the need is so much greater this year than it was last year.
And I think realizing how much our own congregation needed to get back together. Megan, we have a lot of elderly people, and it's the importance of seeing your friends every week and worshiping together, and people come. In the hot of summer, they met me at that door and I took their temperatures. But they came. And they came this morning. It's cold out. But they're going to continue to come because they want to be in this place. We have a very strong and faithful people.
Yes, I can vouch for the people coming into the church. They love coming to church, and they love the social work that goes on in the church. They don't, they miss a certain amount of handshaking and hugging and stuff like this, but they still come to the church, and every Sunday they always ask about this one and that one. And so it's really nice to be there at the door to greet them, because when they come in, you feel like you're at home. You feel like a big family.
So this side of the parking lot's been pretty quiet.
That's the quiet side.
I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to speak if you want to.
We're good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Okay. Well, then I would make a formal motion to adjourn our church conference. As our time together comes to an end, I declare this church conference adjourned. And we accept the freedom and the power that God has given us to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves as we share the love of Christ with our neighbors. Thanks be to God.